In ancient times, there was a famous caliph who loved poetry and literature. He enjoyed reciting his verses in front of his courtiers and guests in his palace. The caliph believed he was an eloquent poet and that his words throbbed with wisdom and beauty. One night, the caliph invited his courtiers and gathered them in his grand hall, deciding to present a new poem of his own composition. Among the attendees was a renowned poet known for his honesty and candor. When the caliph finished reciting his poem, he turned to the poet and asked confidently, "What do you think of my poem? Is it not eloquent and deserving of praise?" The poet looked at the caliph hesitantly, then replied candidly, "I do not see any trace of eloquence in it, my lord." Those words felt like a slap to the caliph's face. He had not expected to be criticized in front of his courtiers, so he flew into a rage and ordered that the poet be imprisoned in the stable with the donkeys and horses, expressing his displeasure with the poet's straightforward opinion. The poet spent a whole month locked in the stable, during which he had ample time to reflect on his words and the consequences of repeating them. After the month passed, the caliph released the poet and brought him back to his court. On another night, after the poet had returned to the court, the caliph decided to recite a new poem in front of the attendees. This poem was full of resounding expressions and ornate words, but the poet had learned his lesson from his previous experience. While the caliph was in the middle of his recitation, the poet began to quietly slip out of the hall, attempting to leave without drawing attention. However, the caliph's eyes were watching every move, and he noticed the poet slipping away. He asked angrily, "Where are you going, O poet?" The poet stopped in his tracks, then responded coolly, "To the stable, my lord." The caliph froze, realizing that the poet had learned his lesson well, but could not resist the urge to smile. For the answer carried another lesson for the caliph himself, that honesty can be painful, but sometimes it is better than empty flattery.